I kept receipts, timestamps, Slack edits, and somehow he still made me look like the unstable one. I wasn't losing my mind, I was being erased. I knew something was off the moment he smiled at me like we were on the same team. That unnatural, too wide expression that's supposed to feel reassuring, but just made my spine itch. Like, he knew something I didn't. Or maybe like he thought I knew, but was pretending not to. Anyway, that was the Monday after he'd called me into his office out of nowhere and told me I'd missed another deadline, which I didn't. I checked 3 times. I had the emails, the shared calendar notifications, the pitch deck I uploaded. All of it was timestamped. When I told him that, calmly I swear, he blinked like I just barked at him. Then he said, "That's not what I remember," in this casual, dad-who's disappointed tone that honestly made me feel like I was the one gaslighting him. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm, and I've been there 4 years. I'm not a newbie. I've gotten strong performance reviews, helped land 2 big accounts, mentored interns. I'm not trying to brag, I built a reputation here. So at first, I figured he had me confused with someone else. Or that something small got twisted and he'd realize it. But that was 2.5 months ago, and now I feel like I'm slowly losing my damn mind. His name's Eric. Technically, director of strategy, but really he bounces between teams like a free agent jerk nobody invited. The first time it happened, I let it go. I even apologized, like an idiot, just to make the awkwardness end faster. But it kept happening. In little ways. Offhand comments like, "You've been a little scattered lately, everything okay?" Or, "Hey, just flagging this again," followed by an attachment I had sent him 2 weeks prior that he'd replied to. But when I brought it up at our next 1:1, trying to advocate for myself without sounding defensive, it got worse. He just smiled and said, "I think you might be under more stress than you realize." Then he sipped his sad little oatmeal latte and moved on like I had brought up the weather. I remember walking out of that meeting in a kind of emotional fog, like I'd just been gently erased. After that, I started writing everything down. Every assignment, every Slack message, every calendar invitation I sent, every file upload. But even then, the goalposts kept moving. Last week, in a team sync, he casually said we'd agree to pivot the entire campaign direction 2 weeks ago. Everyone just nodded like that made sense. But I would have remembered that. I did remember the meeting he was referencing. We talked light revisions, not a reset. But he declared it like it was already canon, and no one blinked. I opened my notes later, word for word, bullet for bullet, and the pivot was not in them. Because it never happened. Which means either he made it up, or he said it and never wrote it down, then convinced himself he told us all along. Both options suck. The worst part isn't the confusion. It's not even the eroding trust. It's that creeping shame, you know. That internalized language he taught me without ever saying it straight. You're unreliable. You're emotional. You're dramatic. And it worked. It slowly, casually worked. I started checking my own files like I didn't trust myself. Started pre-apologizing in emails. Started sitting in meetings smiling a second too long, just so no one would see the split in my seams. One of my coworkers, Kira, pulled me aside after a call last Friday and said, "Are you okay? You seemed kind of off." I nodded and said thanks, and that I was just tired, and she said something comforting and went back to her desk. But I sat there for a while just staring at my screen, and I think that was the moment I realized I actually don't know who I am when he's in the room anymore. Like, I used to be decisive, opinionated even. Now I speak in caveats and take notes like a court stenographer because what if I'm wrong again? Here's the thing, I know the word. I know what gaslighting is. But it feels so theatrical when it happens to you. So absurd that it starts to seem more reasonable to blame yourself. You'd rather believe you're anxious or slipping up or overwhelmed than that someone's quietly screwing with your perception of reality. Because then at least you're the one in control, right? Anyway, I haven't told HR yet. I'm scared of being written off or labeled or ignored. I've started documenting things in a private doc. Screenshots, transcripts, timestamps. Stuff that might not look like anything alone but builds a pattern when you lay it all out. But even as I'm doing it, there's this gross little voice that whispers, "Are you sure you're not just sensitive? Like, what if he really doesn't know he's doing it? What if this is just a horrible mismatch of communication styles and I'm projecting all my fear onto it?" But then I remember how he smiled at me that Monday morning. That fake, tight, pleased with himself smile. And I know, no, he knows exactly what he's doing. I didn't tell anyone for a while, not really. Definitely not the full thing. I kept thinking, if I just collected enough proof, then maybe one day I could present it like some kind of airtight exhibit. Like I'd walk into HR with 20 tabs open and a confident smile and say, here's the pattern, and they'd nod and do something about it. But the truth is, breadcrumbing a psychological trap doesn't work like that. It's not a spreadsheet. It's a slow bleed. And no one wants to believe the smiling guy with the LinkedIn endorsements is making someone unravel. The real shift happened 2 weeks ago. It was so small, again, but something in me cracked when it did. We were prepping for a client meeting that morning, and I had stayed late the night before making sure the deck was polished. It was a high-budget campaign for a new account, clean energy nonprofit. Big visibility for us. I was leading strategy. Eric was supposed to support. He dropped in 20 minutes before the call with this weird, casual swagger, like he was about to wingman a pitch he hadn't even looked at, and said, "Hey, just a heads up," I restructured a few slides. "Felt like your flow was a bit disjointed." I blinked. My what was a bit what now? He opened the deck and started scrolling through our work like it was his framework all along. He'd removed half my analysis, repositioned the key growth drivers from the research team, and changed the tone of the call notes from insight-driven to opportunity-led, which sounds subtle, but it completely changes how we recommended they spend their budget. It wasn't even bad, exactly. Just off. Like watching someone wear your clothes inside out. When I said quietly, "Hey, I wish you'd given me a heads up before changing all that," he shrugged and said, "Well, I mentioned it to you on Slack yesterday." Except he didn't. And when I pulled the message thread up, in real time, on my screen, there was nothing. Not even a hint. I tried to show him, and he got this blank look, like I was doing something strange. He just said, "No worries, I thought I had," and walked into the meeting room like I was some intern fixating on a typo. That client loved the presentation, ate it up, laughed at his jokes, and nodded through his metaphors. And I just sat there, smiling, while this surreal, wavy mirror feeling took over. Afterward, the VP sent a team-wide Slack thanking Eric for the smart pivot in the pitch. My name wasn't in it. Not even once. I don't think I've ever felt more invisible. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid awake with my laptop on my chest, reading back my journal records. I'd gotten obsessive, documenting not just interactions, but tone. The way he'd arch one brow when I spoke in meetings. How he'd ask for revisions on things only to approve the same version days later and act like it had always been different. It sounds petty, typing it all now. Like, okay, but where's the crime? But it becomes this war of 1,000 paper cuts. And at some point you stop asking, am I overreacting? And start whispering, why is no one else bleeding? I think what messed me up most is how normal he seems to everyone else. Like, I caught Kira laughing with him in the kitchen the other day, and it almost made me cry. Not because I resented her, I get it. He's charming. He knows exactly which mask to wear for each room. But I stood there with my coffee going cold, wondering how long it's going to take before I can't tell if people are laughing with me or at me. Anyway, I finally told someone. Not HR. Not yet. I told Sam, who used to be on my team before she moved to a different division last year. We got drinks last Thursday, and I just broke. Like, properly ugly cry broke. Which I never do in public. She didn't flinch. She didn't look shocked. She kind of just nodded slowly like she'd been waiting. Then she said, he did that to me too. My stomach dropped. Apparently, right before she left our team, she was on a project with him where he kept, accidentally, forgetting to copy her on key emails. Then giving her the cold shoulder in meetings, when she'd ask for context. Made her feel like she was stupid for needing to clarify things. She said it was like trying to hold water in her hands. She could feel something was slipping, but couldn't prove it. I asked her why she never said anything. She looked down at her drink and said, because I thought maybe I was burning out. And because HR loves him. God. I went home that night and stared at the email I've been drafting to HR for weeks. Paragraphs rewritten, evidence attached. All of it waiting for the nerve I haven't found yet. And I realized, no matter how airtight I make my case, they might still not believe me. Because he doesn't need to lie outright. He just asks questions with a clear enough voice that you start to doubt your own. And that's scarier than any overt abuse. It's efficient, what he does. Subtle. Professional. Destruction via plausible deniability. The first time I ever used the word gaslighting out loud, like properly said it in reference to me, I was actually whispering it into my phone in my car, sitting in the dark after work like a teenager breaking curfew. It was the night after the Sam conversation. I was leaving late again, too wired to go home, too drained to do anything else. I guess I hit some kind of breaking point because I recorded a voice memo instead of journaling. Just sighing into my steering wheel and pressing record like it would help me untangle the mess if I said it. And I said it. I said muffled and quiet, I think my boss is gaslighting me. Then I laughed. Instinctively. Like I didn't believe myself. But sitting in that car, I realized how much I'd been avoiding my own voice for months. Even internally, I kept qualifying my thoughts. Toning it down. Giving him the benefit of the doubt 300 different ways, because that's what we're trained to do, right? Be fair. Be reasonable. Don't jump to conclusions. But I had evidence. It wasn't perfect, clean-cut evidence, but it was undeniably patterned. Deleted comments and shared docs. Edited Slack threads. He's done that more than once. You can see it when there's a tiny little edited tag, and the tone of the message shifts completely. Meeting recaps where he leaves out major decisions we made, and suddenly it's his plan. Always, somehow it becomes his. Thing is, even talking about it now, it still feels like I'm describing a dream I half remember. He doesn't yell. He doesn't make threats. He doesn't touch me, or use slurs, or send me threatening emails. He's just slowly making me disappear inside my own job. There's one moment that stayed stuck in my head. Last Tuesday, we had a check-in meeting with our account team. Just updates. Typical round-robin stuff. When it got to me, I started explaining how we were adjusting segments in the ad campaign based on analytics from the test group. I was mid-sentence, talking about which KPIs were trending up, when Eric cut in. Actually, we're holding off on that for now, he said smoothly, like we just had that conversation. I blinked at him. What? No, we're already rolling it out. He widened his eyes slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough to say you're being difficult, without saying it. Then calmly, that wasn't what we discussed last week. I felt it. A full body freeze. Like I was glitching. Because we did discuss it last week, and he signed off on it. But now, in front of 5 other people, he was undoing it like he never existed in the decision-making process. And nobody questioned it. I could feel everyone go quiet. Like I just said something slightly erratic. I murmured something like, okay, we can revisit. And tried not to choke on the frustration. But afterward, I went into the meeting notes, my notes, with time-stamped edits from both of us. And there it was. His green checkmark. A comment. Looks great, let's proceed. I screenshotted it and stared at it for probably 10 minutes. And I thought, if I show this to someone, what would it even prove? That he forgot? That he changed his mind? That I'm in a battle of perceptions, and he's winning by being forgettable on command? That weekend, I finally sent the email to HR. It took me 2 hours to write a 5-paragraph summary, then 30 more minutes of pacing, then another hour to click send. I attached 5 screenshots, all carefully labeled. I said I wasn't looking to escalate, just to have a situation on record in case things got worse. I tried to sound level-headed, but I think the last line betrayed me. I'm beginning to second-guess my own memory, and that's not something I want to normalize. They responded 2 days later. Cordially. Professionally. A woman named Christine set up an exploratory conversation. I was nervous as hell, but I showed up. She listened. She nodded. She asked, do others witness the behavior? I said not directly, but I named Sam and what she told me. I even printed out the Slack versions and different iterations of project files. She thanked me for being thorough. Then she said, this is definitely concerning. But she also added, gaslighting is a very loaded term, and it can be difficult to assess intent in cases like these. I wanted to scream. I didn't, obviously. I nodded. I smiled like a person trying to be heard without being labeled emotional. She said she'd need to speak with Eric privately. I knew that could make things worse. And yeah, it did. The day after their meeting, Eric came around to my desk like nothing happened. He just said, hey, quick note. I noticed your timesheets have been a little inconsistent. Let me know if you need help managing your hours. I haven't touched my timesheets differently in months. But I knew. I knew what that was. Not a punishment. A warning. Like, be careful. I can paint you any way I want. I sat there after he walked away, staring at the ridiculous chrome pen holder on my desk, and all I could think was, maybe I really do need help. Then, right after that, another thought I wish hadn't come so easily. Maybe it would be easier to just quit. I didn't quit. Not yet. But that day, after the timesheet comment, I took my laptop and walked to the little side conference room nobody uses. Shut the door. Pressed my forehead to the cold glass for a second. Then opened a Google Doc and started typing as fast as I could. Everything. All of it. Not just evidence. The story. Because I realized I'd been collecting proof like a lawyer, but what I really needed was to hear myself say this is real. I wrote like I'd already been fired, or like he was standing behind me. My hands were shaking. My phone buzzed twice. Slack messages. I didn't check them. I just kept writing. The missed attribution, the shifting tone, the shrinking I'd been doing for months. How sometimes I imagine telling HR the whole story, and they'd look at me with that polite tilt of the head and say, "That sounds unfortunate," without moving a muscle. At one point I typed out, "I feel like I'm a frog being slowly boiled, and every time I try to jump, someone tells me the water is fine." I know how dramatic that reads, but sitting in that little room, it felt like the most accurate sentence I'd written in a year. And weirdly, that was the moment I started breathing again. Fast forward, it's been 11 days since HR formally opened an inquiry. Fancy way of saying they need to do interviews and make it look like they're doing something. Eric's been chilled. Not cold, just overly professional. Like he took a class in how to act innocent and passed with honors. No more weird comments. Nothing you could record, but I can feel it in the way he pauses when I speak in meetings now. Like every word I say is being recorded in his file too. Some days I feel like I made everything up. Other days I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of what he's done. Kira's been distant since Christine contacted her. I don't blame her. She's trying to keep her head down. I get it. That's what I did for almost a year. But the silence hurts more than it should. Last night, Sam texted me. Just 5 words. "You did the right thing." I stared at it a long time. Then typed, "I don't know if it matters." She wrote back, "You're not crazy." That one cracked something in me. Not because I didn't already know, somewhere, but because I needed someone else to say it out loud. Needed that word, crazy, spoken, and then gently pulled away from me. Like unwinding barbed wire I'd wrapped around myself so many times I forgot it was cutting me. We had a staff retreat yesterday, at some offsite in wine country. Classic attempt at culture building with team bonding exercises and group dinners and keynote speakers saying things like lean into your authenticity. Eric was there, of course, wearing sunglasses indoors and clapping too loud after announcements. He worked the room like he always does, bought 2 rounds of drinks, asked about people's kids. You'd never know. At one point he even came over, held my gaze a little too long, and said, "You doing okay?" I smiled. "Are you?" He laughed a little too big. "Of course. It's been a crazy quarter." And I just nodded. Because I don't owe him anything now. Not politeness. Not comfort. Not even fear. I'm still not sure how this ends. HR said it could take weeks before they determine next steps. There's a chance, let's be real, nothing happens. Or I get shuffled to a new role and he stays. Or they both decide it's easier if I move on and we close the loop. But something's changed. It's not justice. It's not even clarity. It's something quieter. I can hear my own voice again. I notice when I speak now, I don't trail off at the end. I don't pre-apologize in decks or say just a quick note before making a point. And in one meeting, last Thursday, when Eric tried to cut me off mid-sentence, I said, not loud, not aggressive, just gently, "Let me finish, please." The look on his face, almost like he forgot I was still here. I don't know if this story is useful. I don't have a clean answer. Part of me still wants to give up, move cities, start over somewhere people haven't made up their minds about who I am. Somewhere I don't have to wonder if smiling too much makes me look unstable, or if raising my voice once makes me difficult. But I keep thinking about how fast it all happened. How one comment can become 2, then 5, then 50. How a confident person, even me, can start rewriting their own memories just to make someone else's version make sense. That scares the hell out of me. But what scares me more is the idea of saying nothing. Of continuing like none of it touched me. Because it did. And I'm still here. And I'm not crazy. Even if he never says another word to me again, I need to be able to say that. Out loud. To myself. And believe it.